Once upon a time in a great village called Karura, two boys grew up side by side, Jabari and Zuri. They were inseparable and had a reputation for their kindness. Jabari, the tall, easygoing one, had a laugh so infectious it could lift even the heaviest spirits, while Zuri, shorter but sharper than a Maasai spear, had a way of making everyone feel special, even the shyest kids in the village. These two were loved by everyone. Well, almost everyone. There was one person who found their charm unbearable, a bitter old woman named Jezebel. Jezebel's heart was twisted with jealousy. She'd lived in Karura longer than anyone, yet the villagers barely looked her way anymore. As she watched Jabari and Zuri be showered with love, her jealousy festered until it took root in the darkest parts of her soul. And Jezebel had secrets that no one knew. Secrets so dark that they would make the ugali go cold in your mouth if you heard them. Years earlier, Jezebel had dabbled in witchcraft. She learned these dark arts to control people's thoughts and twist their emotions to her advantage. Jezebel would never be satisfied until she had everyone looking at her, admiring her, and fearing her too. But that light, Jabari and Zuri's easy laughter and genuine hearts, was too much for her to handle. In her mind, there was no room for both them and her in Karura. One evening, after Jabari and Zuri accidentally stumbled across Jezebel, performing one of her secret, creepy, midnight rituals in the forest, she decided it was time to act. She spread malicious rumors, telling the villagers that Jabari and Zuri were no ordinary boys but sons of a powerful witch who had been cast out many years before. She whispered that their goodness was a trick to cover up the evil that ran in their blood. "Just watch," she'd say, her eyes gleaming with fake concern. "Soon, you'll see their true forms." The villagers, who had once praised the boys, started to look at them with suspicion. Even the little kids who used to play with them now stared from behind doorways, whispering and pointing. And one day, Jezebel gathered the whole village in the square, raised her gnarled hands high, and cursed them, shouting, "Let their true forms be revealed." In a flash, Jabari and Zuri began to grow. Their limbs stretched, their skin roughened, and their voices deepened into an almost unbearable roar. Jabari grew as tall as a baobab tree, and Zuri's teeth grew sharp, his face turning fierce until they became what everyone now feared, a giant and an ogre. The village gasped in horror, mothers clutched their children, and fathers reached for their spears. The two friends looked around, devastated, as the people who had once been their family turned their backs on them. With heavy hearts, Jabari and Zuri left Karura, heading to the mountains where no one could fear them or shun them anymore. Days turned to months and months to years, but even with their new monstrous appearances, Jabari and Zuri didn't lose their good hearts. They made a home on Mount Longonot, where they could look over the village from afar. They helped lost travelers, guided herds that had strayed back to their owners, and saved animals caught in traps. They even guarded the village from bandits and wild animals at night, though no one knew it was them. Thank you for watching this video up to this point. Please like, share, and subscribe. Now in the village, there was a young woman named Wambui who had never stopped believing in the boys she once knew. She remembered how Jabari would give away his only mandazi to a hungry child, or how Zuri once spent a whole night carrying water for an old woman who'd broken her leg. Wambui, with a heart as big as her curiosity, wanted to know the truth. So one morning, with nothing but a basket of bananas and a determined look, she headed up the mountain. "Jabari, Zuri," she called, her voice echoing through the trees. There was a crash as a giant shadow loomed over her. It was Jabari, with a surprised, uncertain look on his huge face. "Wambui," he rumbled, his voice deep and full of disbelief. You're not afraid?" "Afraid? Why would I be afraid?" Wambui replied, grinning up at him. "I came with bananas. They're your favorites, right?" Jabari's face broke into the widest, toothiest grin, and he sat down as carefully as he could so he wouldn't accidentally flatten a tree. Zuri appeared, his ogre form looking a bit sheepish. but Wambui just smiled at him. From that day, Wambui visited them every week, bringing stories from the village and listening to theirs. Over time, Wambui and Jabari's friendship blossomed into love, and even Zuri, ever the mischievous one, would tease them about it. But as their friendship grew, Jezebel watched from afar, her anger growing as well. She had cursed them to be miserable, and here they were, laughing in the mountains like they hadn't a care in the world. Furious, Jezebel decided to end things once and for all. She called another village meeting, raising fear in their hearts once more. "They are planning an attack. They've bewitched Wambui to join them," she shrieked. "We must destroy them before it's too late." The villagers, still caught in her web of lies, rallied. Armed with spears, torches, and the strength of their numbers, they marched up the mountain. Wambui, seeing the approaching mob, ran to Jabari and Zuri, breathless. "You have to hide!" she begged, but Jabari only shook his head. "We've done nothing wrong, Wambui. We'll face them as ourselves, monsters or not." As the mob surrounded them, Wambui stood between the villagers and her friends. "Stop!" she cried, her voice steady despite her fear. "These two have protected you all for years without you even knowing. Jezebel has been lying to you all." The villagers hesitated, their spears lowering slightly, but Jezebel's face twisted in rage. "How dare you question me?" she shrieked, and in her anger, she unleashed a burst of dark magic, revealing her true nature. The villagers gasped, stepping back as her disguise fell away, leaving her an old, twisted woman filled with dark magic and bitterness. With a calm she'd gained from all her mountain visits, Wambui pulled out a charm, a small trinket she'd found among her grandmother's things, said to undo curses born of jealousy. Holding it high, she recited an incantation, and a soft golden light surrounded Jabari and Zuri. The light grew brighter until their monstrous forms melted away, leaving them as they once were, two young men with good hearts and kind eyes. Jezebel, stripped of her power, shrieked as the villagers turned their backs on her, realizing the depth of her lies. She tried to flee, but stumbled, falling into the mud, defeated by her own bitterness, her punishment. The villagers banished her from Karura, leaving her to wander alone, just as she had wished upon Jabari and Zuri. Back in the village, Jabari, Zuri, and Wambui were welcomed with open arms. Their story became a lesson to all. Envy can turn you into a monster, but love and kindness can conquer even the darkest curses. And as for Jabari and Wambui, well, they continued their visits up the mountain. This time not to escape, but to remember the strength of the bond they'd built. Zuri, of course, was there too, always ready with a joke and a smile, reminding everyone of the friends they once were and would always be. And whenever people asked Wambui how she found the courage to face a mob, she'd just laugh and say, "Sometimes all you need is a banana and a bit of faith." The story of Jabari, Zuri, and the bitter old woman Jezebel teaches us that kindness and a good heart can withstand even the darkest of curses, while jealousy only poisons the soul. Jezebel's envy drove her to isolate herself, trapping her in bitterness and leading to her own downfall. In contrast, Jabari and Zuri's unchanging goodness, even when they were cast out, shows that true character shines brightest in times of adversity. Wambui's unwavering belief in her friends reminds us that having faith in others, even when everyone else turns against them, can be a powerful force for change. This story invites us to consider the impact of our actions on others, challenging us to choose empathy over jealousy, love over fear. Have you ever felt envy and let it cloud your judgment of someone else? How could things have been different if you'd chosen kindness instead? When you face judgment or misunderstanding, do you stay true to yourself, like Jabari and Zuri? Or do you allow others' views to change you? Who is the Wambui in your life? The person who believes in you no matter what? Or how can you be that person for someone else?